Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Harold Arnold in my program, Keeping It Real Estate. I'm the host, and I'm a realtor with Illinois Real Estate Partners here in the Chicago land area. I'm in the studio today, not by myself, but with the awesome phenom, Mr. Earl Winfrey, who is the other Winfrey of entrepreneurship. And he's working those knobs today so that we can sound real good on IntellectualRadio.com. It streams live 24/7. So I'm here on Mondays, 3 p.m. Central Time, 3 to 4. And I'm going to be talking, and I might raise my voice a little bit. I don't want you to be offended. But I'm going to be talking about two exciting topics today. And this is really part 2 of what I talked with last week when I had my special guest, Darcy Redmond, in the studio. And that is politics and real estate. And it is very beneficial right at this time to have politics involved because the election in Illinois will be held Tuesday. And we're one of the big states, the big Tuesday states, along with Ohio and Florida. And I'm going to anticipate that it's going to be very interesting on Tuesday night, because I know I will be listening to either MSNBC or CNN or one of those other stations and try to get some type of handle as to who is winning what. And we have some very big local races here. And I'm going to ask my studio entrepreneur, CEO, producer, Mr. Winfrey, to put on an advertisement of one of the people a little later. After I take my short break, you'll hear an advertisement of one of the very special candidates that's running for office. I'll leave it like that. Now, we're going to talk about politics and real estate. And I mentioned on some of my social networks, and my social networks happen to be Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Those are the main 5 that I usually feature and I pronounce whenever I'm going to have a show. And on there, I also talked about real estate value, because politics has a very important link to real estate value. Without the politics, you're really going to have a value that will fluctuate everywhere. Sometimes the politics can tell you exactly where your value is going to be. Sometimes it doesn't. But at least, depending on who you vote for as a citizen, and people will vote, because today is the last day for early voting, and Tuesday will be the first day or the last day of voting. So I know between the 2 days, you can make it at least one from poll booths. And I will say to you right off front, and I brag about it, I was in the poll. I was taking the vote the first day of early voting, which was February 29th. It was Monday, February 29th. I was in there at 9:30 because the polls opened from 9 to 5, early voting. I was there at 9:30. I was out of there by about 9:45, 9:50. Pretty much I knew who I was going to vote for when I walked in there. So I will say this to people, anyone that's listening to me right now, and you can always call in, and you can challenge me on it, and you can talk to me. You can call in at 708-223-8953. Once again, 708-223-8953 if you care to. Number of my people later, because of their working hours, they'll get my link, and it will stream to them. And if you want my link, you can always call me or text me at 312-523-8174. And my website is ChicagoCityHomeSales.com. ChicagoCityHomeSales.com. There's a lot of ways of reaching me. Just put my name in any of those social sites that I just mentioned, including Facebook. You can look me up. You'll see Harold Arnold, Realtor, and you can always send me a friendly note. That's all I wanted, friendly notes. The other notes get deleted. I'm just kidding. But to be honest with you, there's big influences on in real estate value. And I took some of my research, mastering real estate, Carr, Lawson and Schultz, and it's with Dearborn Real Estate back a few years ago, but a lot of it is still pertinent today. And what, according to this, there's influences on research value. What real estate is. It's going to be on land. You're not going to have a house without land. People over the years have died over land. There's countries that have fought wars over land. There's treaties over land, and land is real estate. Where the boundaries are between Mexico and the United States, and United States and Canada. That has to do with land. Land is real estate. You have a house on a certain property, and maybe your house, the dimensions of the land might be 30 feet by 120 feet. Then your house sits within those dimensions. That's land. That's politics. The government handles all the surveys. Who you put in charge of your government is in charge of those surveys. There was some mention about, and I've seen some ads about one of the presidential candidates that was for eminent domain. Eminent domain is when they take over your house, or the government takes your house, and maybe they want to build a road or a certain street. You might be the only house or one of few houses that are there. They want to put an additional runway at the airport. They've done that. And they call for eminent domain. So the government comes in and they say, well, we need your house. We need this land because your house is on the land. We'll pay you a certain amount of money. Now, sometimes you can agree or disagree with what they're going to pay you. But usually they're going to pay you what the going rate is if they were trying to sell it. And they have an eminent domain. So don't tell me, here I am, don't tell me that there's no politics in everything. Because like I said before, there's politics in everything. There's politics in real estate. Sometimes I call it politricks. But nevertheless, there's politics in real estate. And it's every day around us. There's land, and it's been sliced up, some of it for housing, some of it for commercial. If it's designated commercial, you cannot build a residential home in a commercial unless it's mixed. It could be a mixed commercial and mixed residential. If it's designated for residential land use, you cannot put a business there unless it's a home business. And that home business has to be, there's specifics about that, but it's your home and you live there. And you might have a business out of it because a lot of businesses are within the home now. But You can't put a McDonald's in a residential area. A McDonald's is only going to go in a commercial area. There's also types of businesses. There's some businesses you have to have a license. For example, a special license, not just a food handler's license, but if you're going to open up a liquor store, you got to have a special license. There's some locations where they're not allowed to have a bar that's near a school. The government sets that, and that's all business and real estate. So if you don't do anything, ladies and gentlemen, and if you have millennials as your sons and daughters, please talk to them. Get them to understand what I'm saying today. That's why you vote. That's why this. Because, and some people say, well, doesn't matter if I vote Democrat or Republican. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And sometimes you might have a Republican that acts like a Democrat, and you have a Democrat that acts like a Republican. They got names for them. Rhino and Dino. A rhino is Republican in name only, R-I-N-O. Sometimes they spell it R-H-I-N-O. Rhino, and I won't say what the H is. We don't curse here on Intellectual Radio. We just give out good knowledge. Then you have Dino, Democrat in name only. There's a Democrat, and they act like a Republican. Some people say, oh, I don't know if I should say this. Yes, I can, because he's a politician. I can say anything. Some people wonder about the mayor of Chicago. What is he? I had one guy tell me on Facebook he's a Republican. I said, no, he worked for President Obama staff. Well, you see what happened? Chicago, 50 schools closed. Business, education, real estate. Now, what's happening with those buildings, 50 buildings? A lot of them are vacant, sitting on land. Real estate. Some are being used for other businesses, bought them out, or some organization has moved into a few of the buildings. Some of the buildings are boarded. Now, if you have a house across the street from that school that's boarded up, I feel sorry for you, because that's going to affect your housing value. Now, it could always be a good way, but 90% chance is not going to be a good way, because what's going to happen sooner or later, they're going to do something with that building. Maybe it may be utilized for a business, and that's good if it is. That'll help you. The longer it stays boarded up, the more effect it's going to have on your real estate. Because the land is not being used. Usually if land is not utilized, like vacant lots, they're not utilized, they are an endangerment to your housing value. Now, if it's utilized, and then let's say later on someone buys it, then they turn it over and make it a legitimate type of business. And I have to be careful when I say that, legitimate. We would hope that they would. And that's where your audit person comes in. Are they making sure that if a business is coming in there, it's the right type of business? That's why you elect the audit person. You got to have somebody that understands, that has some sense. You don't just vote for somebody because their name is out there. Because I tell you, I know a lot of politicians here in Chicago now. I don't know them face to face. I'm not in their face. unless I need, because I'm out in the suburbs anyway. But if I need to be in a politician's face, I will be. But I would tell you this. I've heard a lot of names, but I have to look at it. What are you doing? It's not about the name. I've grown up with politics all through my life. My background, I worked for a school system. I knew politicians, some of them by first name basis, even though I called them by their last name because I was younger in those days. And I called them by the last name. Or I called them councilmen, or, well, back in Cleveland, we called them councilmen instead of alderpersons. Very respectful for them. But you have to see what they're doing. If they're alderperson, are they writing legislation that is going to help the ward that you're in? Are they doing something about that closed school building? Are they making use of the land? Or is that school building just an eyesore and it's all boarded up and you look in the back, there's graffiti. The grass is growing wild. I heard of some of that here in Chicago. They closed up some school buildings, Earl, and the grass is growing. They're not keeping it cut. Then they say they don't have the money. But nobody's got any money nowadays, except the 1%. They got plenty of money. How do I know? I just saw a report today. Walmart is the largest employer in all 50 states now. They must be making some money. Walmart, the largest employer in 50 states. Unbelievable. Largest employer. So that just lets you know that it's business, it's politics, but anytime there's land involved, it's real estate. Land has to deal with location, your composition. What's composition? Well, what's on that land or what's in that land? Now, there's some land, there's stuff in it. If there was an old factory, that land has things in it that needs to be cleaned up. Some land has water or wells or different things in it, depending on where the location is. So that's composition. Is it durable? Can it be used? There's some land that can be used and some land cannot be used. They got radon laws now. They got to check to see, especially, well, I'll give you an example. There have been service stations or gas stations that have closed up. Okay, and they got those wells where they hold the gasoline. All right, the gasoline station closes up. The gasoline station's torn down. There's the land. Now, what is going to be done with that land? Is it going to be cleaned up? And can it be utilized? Is it durable to the point it can be utilized again? Land is also finite in supply. Is there a lot of land? And can it be used properly? Now, you got locations. One of them I can think of is Flint, Michigan. A couple of my shows, there's a travesty in Flint. And it is, and it still is. I think Michael Moore, the director, sent out a tweet the other day, said that it's been over 600, 700 days now of people still dealing with this plumbing and pipe situation over there where there's lead. There was a lady that was a Caucasian lady that happened to be at one of the debates, and she was from Flint. And she brought up the fact that there was all types of problems And her kids, she had a couple kids, they had to go to the hospital because of the water and the lead in the water. And then you look, and then they put a camera on her face. She had all kind of bumps coming out of her face. Bumps from what? Drinking that lead water or using the lead water. It's not just about drinking. You can drink the regular water, but you got to bathe. You got to wash your face. Now, then you have to use bottled water now. Can you see yourself with bottled water every day trying to bathe? Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. And how it relates to real estate. Who's going to buy their house? Would you buy a house with, there's lead going through your pipes? They have no market. Their housing has gone down. And I mean down. And a lot of them are stuck. They can't move. But they don't, which is a shame. That's politics, though. A lot of those people, and I've told people this before, there's two cities that I know quite a bit about, Flint and Ferguson. Ferguson, Missouri, Flint, Michigan. I've read a ton of things about it. And the two similarities between those two cities is the fact that people were voting, of the registered voters, about 15% and less were voting in most of the elections. That's the similarity. When you don't vote, you don't have a voice. And then people come in there and they know, the politicians, they know who votes and who doesn't. They can easily find that out. You give them a call on the phone and you start complaining. If they really want to, all they got to do is go to the election bureau and they can find out if you signed in and vote. Because you have to sign in. And that has to be public and anybody can go and look at it. So you cause some problems, talk about this and that and this and that. They can find out if you're going to vote. If you vote. If you don't vote, you think they're going to listen to you? Now, if you vote and you got 3 or 4 kids in your family, they're 17, 18 years old, they're in high school, they vote, you vote. If your parents live with you or their grandparents live with them and they vote, which most of these seniors, grandparents, they do vote. But let's say they do vote, then they're going to listen. You mean something. I will tell you this. I remember in Cleveland, Ohio, and there was a councilwoman. First name, I'll say her first name is Fanny. So if any Clevelanders would, and I can't think of her last name right now, but if any Clevelanders are listening, they will know who I'm talking about, probably. She would come to a board meeting, this lady, and she would have a constituency with her. And they were all voters. Sometimes she would come alone. Sometimes she'd come with 10, 15, 20 people. And she was in a rough area. Her area was where the Huff riots. Anybody knows about riots? That's where her area was, where the Huff riots were. Now, she wasn't councilman then or council person then. But the Huff riots were in the area where she served. It was tough. Tough it's equivalent to Cabrini Green here in Chicago, what that used to be like. And projects, poor people, crime, all that. She came in and she cleaned a lot of it up. Now, the Huff riots had a lot of stuff burned down, but the few stragglers that were there, she cleaned it up. She'd come down with some parents at a board meeting if they didn't like something, or if a parent, in fact, the parents didn't even call the board. He called a board. I was at some of the board meetings. I would see this. It was just spectacular, the kind of politics that was going on. She would go and she'd come in with 10 or 15 people. And before she went, she would stop by the superintendent's office. She would stop by different departments, tell them what she needed. And I never saw administrators jump. And I mean, they would jump as she came in. They tell her something. No matter what they were doing, they would stop what they were doing. That woman walked in their office. They'd have a book and a pad. They would write it down, and they would jump. And she'd come in that board meeting. She'd get at that mic, and she would tell them what she wanted for her community. Now, that was a councilwoman. She'd go right to the board meeting and tell the board what she would do. And I remember she told off a board member one time. And they were scared of her because they would never know what she would say. And if she didn't agree, and you go over and tell her no, you were blasted. You were blasted. And she was the type, she had her office running so good that if a board member was running for office and she didn't like that board member, in fact, she was one of the council persons they would go to first to get her endorsement. Because they knew they would not get in without her, because she had people on the street that would pass out literature saying, vote for somebody else but you. She was something, but she was a strong leader. That's the kind of politician I want to see here in Chicago. And I don't see it. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see it often enough. There's one or two that come out periodically. But this woman, she had a complaint, and she would hear those same complaints over and over again. Okay, let's go. And back in those days, they didn't have Twitter. They didn't have Facebook. All they had was landline phones. And she had that network where she could make a few phone calls, and then her people would make a bunch of phone calls, and the whole neighborhood would know. And I'm talking about you talking about a politician? She was there for a number of years as their councilwoman. I think about 20, 25 years before she finally retired. And she could get things done. And she would get them done. If it had to do with the schools or if it had to do with City Hall, she'd be down at City Hall. There were many a days you could watch City Hall programs on TV, and she was always speaking at something. The program would only be an hour or an hour and a half. She was always one of the speakers. She'd be sitting in her chair. They had a designated spot for her with her name. And she'd raise her hand and she'd say, this is what I need. This is what we need in our community. And she would get it. The mayors, they would jump. I'm going to tell you. She called a mayor, and the mayor would take her phone call. Now, there's some other people. Tell them I'll call them back later. Call them back in 5 or 10 minutes, but not her. And I saw this. Hey, I'll swear, but I was in an office one time talking to a director, and this was when I was a principal. That director dropped me and went and talked to her. Then she explained what she wanted. The councilman, he says, okay, ma'am, I'll do it. Then he came back to me. So I seen it. That's kind of politics. She made him jump, and I was at board meetings. I witnessed it. She would always speak if she was there. Now, she didn't go to all the board meetings, but she had people that would be at all the board meetings. So she knew everything was going on. She knew the budget. She knew the board budget better than the board did. Some of the members of the board, to be honest with you. And if she needed something for a high school, well, the principals in her ward, they loved her. Because if they really needed something, they go to her. Now, they were supposed to go to their own director or the superintendent. But if they really needed something or something they asked for wasn't getting done, then they would go to her. And she would get it done. And I remember some schools got some new air conditioning and new roofs and all that kind of stuff. They had leaky roofs and all that was taken care of because she got right on it. Once she found out about it and someone says the board process was working too slow, she'd be at the board meeting. Next thing you know, it was on the agenda for the next board meeting with funds appropriated. Okay? I'm just telling you. Politics. Now, according to this special report, before I can take a little short break, there are four forces that help to influence real estate value. I'll name those four forces right now. Social, economic, physical, environmental, that's all one, and then government. So when you say government, that's politics. Social, economic, physical or environmental, and then government. So I'm going to take a minute, take a short break. I'm going to be right back. I'm keeping it real estate, IntellectualRadio.com. And I'm in the studio talking about politics, real estate, and real estate value. And I'm right here with the phenom, Earl Winfrey. And I'm going to be right back. Want you to stay right with me. Give me about a minute. And we'll get right back on it. Thank you for listening.
The numbers say I shouldn't be here. The daughter of a teenage single mother, a child of Cabrini Green, homeless for a time in high school, and the victim of sexual assault. My name is Kim Fox. Against the odds, I graduated college, then law school, became a legal advocate for the children of abuse and neglect, a Cook County prosecutor working to protect children and victims of crime, sending abusive parents to jail, cracking down on gun violence, prosecuting violent criminals and predators who prey on kids. And I helped lead Cook County's efforts to begin reforming our criminal justice system and manage thousands of people and billions of dollars. Now I'm a wife and a mother, and I do anything to keep my family safe. From where I started, it was unlikely someone like me would become state's attorney. But that's why I'm running. Because we've treated people like statistics for too long. And our state's attorney has lost sight of the community she's sworn to serve. I'm Kim Fox. I'm running for all the kids like me who face long odds, and all the neighborhoods who feel forgotten. I'm running for justice for all.
Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I was just on my little break. You heard an excellent politician just a minute ago in the commercial. And I would hope that you understand, especially after I finished the show today, how important politics is, how important the vote is, because that's part of politics, and it relates to everything. And it relates to real estate quite a bit. Now, in my review of some interesting topics, I mentioned about four forces: social, economic, physical or environmental, and government. So when it comes to social, there's societal trends. There's culture, which means it's culture, is social. There's population trends that have to do with real estate Sometimes real estate grows, sometimes it declines, and you have to see whether or not it's stable. So if you're looking for a house, and you've heard me mention before about location, pricing is another part of it, but the societal part of this is whether or not there's growth in the neighborhood. Now, there's sometimes you don't want too much growth. I remember selling a house, and one of the things that I happened to use that was true, because I'm only going to speak the truth, and it helped this person make up her mind to buy the particular house, was the fact I said, you're not going to have a lot of people here on this street. And then she says, well, why not? I said, look across the street. I said, you see a school there. The school took up basically most of the block. So there were not a lot of houses there. So you didn't have to deal with a lot of houses. The only thing you had to deal with the school is the fact that the students, they come to school in the morning and they leave in the afternoon. Well, she said, this is great, because by the time they come to school, I'm gone. I'm over at work. And by the time they get out of school, I'm still at work. I'm driving home. And she still lives in the house. And one of the last times I had talked to her, she mentioned the fact that she barely hears any noise. It's quiet because the school is only open basically from 8:30 to about 4 o'clock. She's at work Monday through Friday. Saturday, they might have some little sessions or something like that. Few kids, few teachers, that kind of thing. So it's quiet. Now she's got neighbors. There's other houses. There's a house right next door. There's some houses down the street, but directly across the street from her house is a school. There's no playground there, so there's nobody hanging around. It was perfect. Quiet, perfect. No problems with crime. Nobody hanging out on the corners, things like that. Right in Chicago. She's got a very nice home. So it's just how you look at things is what makes things happen. Sometimes you have declines in neighborhoods too. So the decline is, and this is where it becomes political. If you live in a neighborhood and you start to see a decline, you got to nip it in the bud. You need to get with your alderperson or your representative and say, I can't accept this. I mentioned in one of my programs, I told some folks, I called City Hall one time and I asked the director, and they gave me the director. I says, well, can you get this road fixed? Because it's been like this for 3 weeks. And they got signs and everything on, it's all junky. And there was a few bad days where the wind was blowing them all around. It's all over the street. I'm driving my car and I got to go all around that mess. I said, hey, now if you can't do it, you're the director, and you can't do it, then you need to tell me who can, or I'll find somebody who can get it done. Oh no, Mr. Arnold. Oh. Yeah. So I had to talk to him like that. And I'm not going to go and allow something. I nipped it right in the bud. And the sad thing was, it wasn't even near my home. It was at least 4 blocks. And I didn't even have to go that way. But the fastest way and the best way was for me to go that way. Otherwise, I got to do something different and go around. Now, I could have gone around, not paid any attention to it, but then the street would have still been there. Now, what bothered me, there's other people in my community, they're right there, and they let it go. They don't get on the phone and call anybody. So sometimes you got to deal with people that don't get it. They don't get it. And it was right there on their street. I often tell about another example of a bunch of trash, which was down the street, and these people moved out the house. And they left the trash, and the city workers, lazy that day, didn't pick it all up. So it was there for a day or two, and I'm thinking, oh, somebody's going to get by and pick it up. Maybe they couldn't pick it all up at that time. I'm thinking maybe there's another truck. Well, it sat out there a couple of days. Then the next thing you know, the wind is blowing that out in the street. Now, I could have ignored that and gone a certain way, but I saw it, and it was an eyesore, and it was about 3 or 4 doors from me. Now, I mentioned I got neighbors on the right and the left of me. Excellent. They wouldn't have stood for it either if it was around where our particular area was. But here you had some folks, and I couldn't understand it. They're coming out of the driveway, and they had to see the stuff. It's right in front of them. Instead of taking phone, and we got the cell phones. All it takes is a second or two. Put the number in your phone. While you're driving to work, you can call them. And that's what I did. In fact, the 2 times I called City Hall, I was in my car. I was in my car the 2 times I called City Hall. Now, years and years and years ago, you couldn't do that. So you can't tell me you can't do stuff and take care of business. So I called and I told him, I said, this is trash. But before I did that, I do remember, I went by the house and got the exact address. Because I didn't want them going, we can't find it and all that. You got to have your details and your facts together. So I did go by the house, and I did take the address because I didn't know what the address was of the house. And I took the address and I gave them the address. When you have the facts together, people believe you. Now, if I just said, oh, it's down this street, because I've heard some Chicagoans say this. I said, so where's this business? Oh, it's down the street. That's not telling me anything. I'm from Ohio. We go by numbers and addresses, okay? And street names. Down the street, the corner of this and that. No, we'll go by an address first. Then we'll say it's on the corner of this and this. But we always go with an address. That's getting your facts. Have your facts together. So it could be 121 Canal, which is on the corner of Canal and State. We have all that, not just some of it. You can go with 121 Canal. That's good enough. But to make it even better is to say it's on the corner of Canal and State, if you want to. And that makes it a little more important. But just to say, oh, yeah, it's on Canal and State. Come on, give me a break. I'm starting to learn that word from Joe Madison over on Sirius Radio. Give me a break, please. You have to step up and get things done. And can't be afraid. And cannot be afraid. That's how you have control of your neighborhoods. There's no reason why some gangsters, and I'll use the name, okay? No reason why some gangsters should be controlling your streets. That just tells me no one in the neighborhood cares. I used to have a policy when I worked at the Board of Education back in Cleveland, Ohio. And someone would tell me, and I would tell my own kids, I said, there's no such word as can't. Can't to me is like a swear word. If you can send a person to the moon, we just had one guy, he's a twin. went around the earth 340 days. Remember that? Just came back. 340 days going around the earth. I don't think any of those scientists says he couldn't do it, or they use the word can't. To me, can't means won't. That's what it means to me. I used to tell my kids that. You tell me you can't do something, that tells me you won't do something. It's all psychological. It's all psychological. It's up here in the head. You can't do something, you won't do something. That's what it tells me. And that's usually what it is. That's usually what it is. So we have to stop that. We can't do stuff. We have to take over our neighborhoods and not allow a few people, and there's only a certain percentage, because most people are good. I'm going to tell you, most people are good. It's like I used to tell my teachers back in the day when I was principal. I'd say, the majority of your class is fine. 95% of your class is fine. It's how you deal with the 2, 3, 4, or 5%. Now, are you going to let the 5% control, or are you going to control? You're the adult. You got to deal with that 4 or 5%. You're going to have to deal with it because every class got it. I've taught school long enough. I've seen it. I've been a school administrator long enough. I've seen it. It's always 4 or 5%. They're just not going to conform. They're going to be a little tougher to manage and handle. But you got to handle them. There's an old saying, a rotten apple spoils the barrel. Okay, so you got to deal with that rotten apple. Now, when it comes to kids, many times you can save them. Sometimes you can't. I saved a number. Sometimes they used to be in my office. I saved them. Sometimes they didn't always like the way I saved them. Like a few years later, Mr. Arnold, I graduated. And they showed me the diploma and all that kind of stuff. I remember those days. Oh, and but to get in their mind to deal with some of these folks. Now, sometimes you can talk to them. Sometimes you can't talk to them, but you better have an alternative if you cannot talk to them. I shouldn't say can't. I'm using the word. Won't. And if you won't talk to them and you won't do anything, then they're still out there. They're going to be out there. They're going to be in your neighborhood, bring your property values down. That's the social. That's a decline in the neighborhood. Now, it's amazing to me, like I told people, there's pockets of Chicago. It's fantastic. And then you go to the next block, there's a problem. Because the next block of people haven't solved that problem. And sometimes they have the same alderperson. But the alderperson can only do what you allow them to do. Now, if you allow them not to do anything, they'll do nothing. That's politics. I've heard some people. I heard a tape today, and I won't even say the name of the person, but he was tearing up the President Obama, bad mouthing him left and right. And he said he helped President Obama become President Obama. And I'm sure he did. And this is a prominent author, African American. Now, he helped the president get in there. Well, the way I kind of looked at it, okay, you helped the president get in there. Now you bad mouthing him. What did you do And what have you done besides the bad mouthing? What have you done to help? You saw the president was going in the wrong direction on something. Did you get on the phone? You said you helped the president. You know the president. Were you on the phone to the president? Probably not. Probably not. Did you let the president know what you thought? Or are you meeting in a room with a bunch of folks with a tape talking about what the president hasn't done? Well, big deal. A lot of people know what the president hasn't done. It's the same thing with alderpersons. A lot of people in the neighborhood know what the alderperson hasn't done. But have you ever called, or there has been a meeting, a block club meeting? Have you ever been there at the block club meeting? Not just to give a complaint, but to say that you're going to do this or you're going to do that to make it better. Are you holding people accountable? Or are you just going in the poll? If you are voting, you're just pulling the name. It's the same name. Or worse yet, you don't even vote. So then everybody else picks who they want to represent their neighborhood. But you don't like the president, or you don't like the alderperson. Oh, I can't stand an alderperson. But you didn't go over there and vote. But sometimes they run unopposed. Well, write it in. You can write in. Or you can find somebody to run against them. The politicians do it. Look how many people, I hate to bring this up because this man's name's always mentioned every day and I'm almost get sick of. Well, I won't mention the name. You'll know. He begins with a T. And all the Republicans are talking about him now. Now, they underestimated him. And they look, and he's the front runner. They never thought he would make it past because no one did anything. They got into debates, they wouldn't say anything. Now he's the front runner. And maybe tomorrow night he'll basically have the nomination for president on the Republican side. We'll see. But it happens because people do a lot of talk, but then they don't do it. They don't call people. I was principal of school. I know the councilman very well. I knew him so well. You better believe I could get it. I had a problem one time with a supervisor downtown. And I remember calling the councilman. And I said, this is what's going on. Do you think you have some influence with this guy? Because I'm not getting anywhere with him. And I'm not going to be arguing with somebody back and forth. Then he's going to go to my director and try to turn me in and get me fired and all that. No, I don't have time for that. So I had a councilman do it. He says, I see your point. And he talked to him, and we got to straighten out. And when he found out that I was a principal that had ducks in a row and influence in my area, he had to back off and he had to do what I wanted him to do. And it was something with some grooming of the building, of the land. And it was part of the school property, and they didn't want to do it. Talking about they didn't have any money, but once the councilman talked to them, they found the money. They call it found the money. Get it straight. So I'm telling you, politics and real estate go together. It always goes together. Family composition is part of this, of the forces. When you have family in suburbs It used to be you had two parents in the city and the suburbs. Then it used to be you had two parents in the suburbs. Now, two-parent family. Every family is different. Some families, they're in the suburbs, and it's just the wife head of the household. There's some suburbs, it's just the man, because there's been divorces or death in the family or things like that. There's a lot of things to it. There's double income that years ago didn't happen. There were cases where the father was the only one working and the mother stayed at home with the kids. Then it got to the point that both were working because things were going up in price. People wanted something better in life or bigger homes and things like that. That's all. And then more people start working. Then more jobs had to be created too. More people had to go to college, get an education. Things like that. Nowadays, I tell anybody, male or female, young people, when you're in high school, you need that education as much as you can get. As much as you can get. Because even if you get married, you don't know how the other person's going to do. So all that plays a part. A lot of that deals with real estate because you got homes. People buy homes based on their income. It used to be a time a woman could not buy a home on her own. The laws changed. There used to be a time women couldn't even vote. Okay? We'll put it like that. Then they couldn't buy a home on their own. Then they had what they called redlining. Then they had problems with women getting mortgages. Now it's almost the opposite effect. I read a report not too long ago. 70% of the women, well, in the Chicagoland area, 70% of the mortgages are going to women. 70%. Because these young ladies now have jobs and good jobs. They're educated and highly educated. So you have that kind of thing, and they want to buy a home. I know a number. In fact, my last 2 deals were to single women. Single women, they bought homes. So that just lets you know things are changing. The aging population, that's another issue. More people are living longer. So they're looking at different ways of dealing with their houses. I've known of people and have sold to people that have bought second homes here in Chicago. They live out in the suburbs. They bought a second home. Then when they got tired of the second home or of the major home, they sold that. And now they're living in the second home. I know that's the case, especially downtown. I know a few that they sold their house in the suburbs. They got tired of driving into Chicago. They loved Chicago. They got tired of driving in. And then they put their other house up for sale. Now they're living in a condo. They downsized. They're empty net. They call them empty nesters in real estate. Empty nesters. That's because their sons and daughters have gone on. They have their own careers. They have their own families now. So, and some of them had 3 or 4 kids. They're all grown. They're on their own. And now the husband and wife are together. They're still together. And they just said, well, we'll get the second condo, second home. They got it. Later on, a year later, they sold their main home. Now they're living in the condo full time. So there's a lot of things in real estate that have changed. Home offices is another thing. All that means is that there's been homes that, as far as people working out of their homes, more people are working out of their homes now because of the internet. That's basically it. I know several people. They got businesses and they use their computers all the time. All the time. And now We can send contracts and have people sign a contract with their computer. We can have people sign a contract with their smartphone. They can actually look at a contract on a tablet, read it, and sign it, and send it back. It's just unbelievable what has happened. And people go around there talking about they can't do something. The internet, the space, the astronauts, what they do with internet, online. It used to be the computer always had to be plugged into a wall. Now you don't. It used to be that there were no cell phones except for the very rich. They had them in the cars. That's out. Now people are running around with cell phones. It used to be a time where you could only talk on the cell phone. Now you can look up things. You got an encyclopedia in your hand at a moment's notice. Just Google it. That's all you got to do. So when someone or your alderperson or somebody or some law official tell you they can't do something, then you need to talk to somebody else. I walked away from a lady one time. She talked about she couldn't do. I can't do that. That's fine. I'm talking to the wrong person. Okay. I went to somebody else and got it done. I've gotten a signal, ladies and gentlemen. Didn't mean to go over here and preach, but I'm going to tell you, I love this station. I've been here for about 6, 7, 8 months now. And I'm going to tell you, it's gotten to the point that I'm going to continue to love it. I love it every time I'm on here on Mondays. I'm still thinking about maybe extending it another day. I haven't decided yet. But anybody that ever wants to join me on my station with your business, because real estate's in almost every type of business, give me a call at 312-523-8174. Harold Arnold. If you're looking for a home, you can always call me. If you're looking specifically for a home that's related, that can be found, and you want to find out what might be available, check my website. It's wonderful, ChicagoCityHomeSales.com. And you can put in whatever parameters you want. 3 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, $100,000, $5,000, $1 million, $2 million. Doesn't matter. You put the parameters in, whatever you want for that home, you can put it in my website. It's directly connected to the MLS, which is the multiple listing service that realtors use. So anything that a realtor has, you can see. And I will work with you. And I also have great incentives. So call me to find out about the incentives. I don't always like to broadcast that because I have other realtors that listen to my station too. And I got to be a step or two ahead of them. A little later on today, Roman Morrow would drive at 5. Pastor Johnson used to follow me. She's on in Sunday mornings at 10 now. Rhea Ray Harris. She's got a couple shows, but the one she has today is at 6 p.m. And like I said before, you never know. They bring in some people, smart people. We've had politicians here. We even had the woman, Miss Fox, and Miss Fox, Kim Fox, the attorney. She's been here on this station. And we've had all type of politicians and actors and musicians and rap artists and people in the community, ministers, and so forth. So you never know what you're going to have on IntellectualRadio.com. And it's streamed live 24/7. And we even have some celebrities on other stations, AM and FM, that come to the studio and they have a program. And I'm thinking of Maze Jackson. Maze Jackson has a program. He's on tonight. He's on tonight at 8 p.m. on IntellectualRadio.com. And you never know who he's going to bring in. He brings them all in because he's got the name. He's on WVON many days of the week on WVON, which is an AM station right here in Chicago. So we are moving in the right direction. I love Earl Winfrey, and I made a remark last week. We were all laughing about it. He's really the Winfrey. It's the other Winfrey that's got the show on television. And she has the, what do they call that show? What's that station with the other Winfrey? OWN. OWN really means Other Winfrey Network. That's what OWN means. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week. Intellectual Radio. I'm here with Earl Winfrey, the first Winfrey of the media. Thank you very much.
The numbers say I shouldn't be here. The daughter of a teenage single mother, a child of Cabrini Green, homeless for a time in high school, and the victim of sexual assault. My name is Kim Fox. Against the odds, I graduated college, then law school, became a legal advocate for the children of abuse and neglect, a Cook County prosecutor working to protect children and victims of crime, sending abusive parents to jail, cracking down on gun violence, prosecuting violent criminals and predators who prey on kids. And I helped lead Cook County's efforts to begin reforming our criminal justice system and manage thousands of people and billions of dollars. Now I'm a wife and a mother, and I do anything to keep my family safe. From where I started, it was unlikely someone like me would become state's attorney. But that's why I'm running. Because we've treated people like statistics for too long. And our state's attorney has lost sight of the community she's sworn to serve. I'm Kim Fox. I'm running for all the kids like me who face long odds, and all the neighborhoods who feel forgotten. I'm running for justice for all.